Hello and welcome to the Cannon Sports Podcast. I am your host, Ryan from Cannon Sports, and joining me today, sports performance coach to the stars, Darelle Noel. Darelle, thanks so much for stopping by the pod, man.
What's going on, Ryan? Thanks for having me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate you coming out to the studio. So let's start from the start. Darelle, where are you from, man?
I'm from Houston, Texas.
All right, Houston, Texas.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Now, when you were growing up, what sports did you play?
I grew up playing football,
Okay.
basketball, and track.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, growing up, playing football, basketball, track, moving on into high school, what was your sports? What was your thing?
In high school, football became my sport because, well, of course, I wasn't tall enough.
Yeah.
So, but I was always fast.
Yeah.
You know, so football was the one that I really wanted to play. I didn't really take track serious until my senior year, only because when football season was over, after my senior year, I needed something to do. Because, you know, after senior year, after football season, you get a bunch of elective classes. You know, so I ran track. But looking back on it, I wish I would have stayed in track earlier.
What was your event when you were running track?
I ran the 100, the 200. I tried the 400 a couple times. But, you know, when that monkey jumps on your back, it's not a fun thing. So I never did it again.
Yeah.
But the 100 and the 200 were my races.
Yeah. Now that's it. Now we're gonna get into it, but you know, you're a sports performance coach, fitness and performance coach, you know, movement specialist, and one of the big things too is speed development.
Yes, sir.
So you were fast growing up.
Yes.
What were some of the things you learned growing up, running track, playing football that you know? So I guess what I'm getting at is like for you, I'm sure like was it a natural thing, but were there also things that you picked up to develop that speed?
I just think back then it was just more so being a kid, hanging around with my friends every day, and being outside in the natural elements. Because nowadays we have so many different tools and resources and science-based training and philosophies. Back then in 2000s, early 2000s, late 1990s, we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So we had the manual hills and just playing with our friends.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, I didn't even think of training.
Yeah.
We didn't even work out. We just played with our friends and went to football practice, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was it. You know, it's funny, man. Like, I think we're right around the same age, and I feel like we're just getting to that level where we're like, we're kind of the guys that are looking back at the olden days. Like, I remember, I hear it all the time when people talk about, like, guys like LeBron and you know, like the pro athletes today and how serious they are about taking care of their body and their diets and their workout regimen, and how that wasn't really present. And then even outside of the professional level, kind of like you were talking, like I look at kids today and athletes, youth athletes today, and some of the training that they do and some of the exercises that they do. And then I remember back to like, you know, we grew up in the 90s. I was like, there was none of that, man. We played ASO soccer, Plop Warner football, Little League baseball, and there wasn't any kind of, you just went out and played,
right.
You know what I mean? And now younger and younger, it's people are starting to realize some of the training and stuff. So football and track in high school. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay.
So I went there for 2 years, and that's really when I got into my path of training.
Yeah.
Because I only went to school because I wanted to play football.
Yeah.
And I only wanted to play football, which means I wasn't taking school serious.
Yeah.
And my parents decided to say, take me home. Said, come home, you're not taking school serious, so let's come home, let's figure this thing out. And initially, my major was accounting.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with sports, the human performance body, none of those things. And just to take it a step backwards a little bit behind, but before that, I wanted to be a chef.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to cook because growing up, my dad did barbecue and catering, being from Houston.
Yeah.
That's a big staple of where I'm from.
Yeah.
So, again, I didn't really want to go to school. My dad wanted me to go to school, so I said, okay, I'll go play football. So I walked on, played a couple years, and, you know, basically did not take it serious.
Yeah.
You know, so in between that time frame and 2012 is when I got the passion to create an outreach to raise the awareness of eating clean, eating healthy, and working out.
Yeah.
That's initially how it all began. And that stemmed from both of my parents having health risk factors. My dad had diabetes, and my mother had high blood pressure. And in the region that we grew up in, we wasn't really eating the best. You know, so it wasn't a thing like how it is in California. You wake up, eat your egg whites and your avocado toast, have your orange juice. Where I grew up, my dad would make bacon every day, save the bacon grease, and use it the next day. So this is one of the reasons why I really got into training, because I wanted to teach and help people understand that creating a lifestyle for yourself of longevity, this is not how we do that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to raise the awareness of doing that, and I started a free workout group every Saturday. Created nutritional plans for everyone, so anyone could come, and that really got me into training.
Yeah.
So I got back into school,
Yeah.
changed my major to exercise science, and everything kind of stemmed from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So got back into school, change your major, exercise science. So this is in Houston now that you're doing these Saturday workouts and doing nutritional plans for people. So this, it sounds like it's kind of on the personal trainer kind of route.
At that point, yes, sir.
Yeah. So when did that morph into sports performance coaching?
It morphed into sports performance coaching December 31st, 2011.
Wow. So that's an answer you don't always get, the date.
Yeah, so December 31st is New Year's Eve.
Yep.
So my dad was a pastor.
Yeah.
So we would always go to church on New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We got out church a little bit early, around 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I was watching T.D. Jakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? T.D. Jakes was on talking about the burning desires. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it became a passion of mine to kind of raise this awareness, So he was talking about chase your burning desires and your passions, and that was one of the things that forced me to get back into school. And the next semester, I got back into school, changed my major to exercise science, and 2 months later, I applied for an internship at a sports performance company by the name of Exos.
Okay.
Which is world renowned for NFL combine training, and one of the best in the world. Yeah. Right. So that's really what transformed it to health and wellness to sports performance. Yeah. And throughout that internship, I learned so much in that I do now, and my mindset was, I want to be the best at it. Yeah. So that's that.
There you go, man. So you're working at Exos, and you kind of shift to sports performance.
Yes, sir.
What comes next in that journey? Because as we're going to get to like where you are now, I mean, a highly sought after sports performance movement and speed coach. So Exos, you've got the internship. You go from the focus on health and wellness to now you're looking at sports performance. What's the next move for you after that?
After that, after the internship, it was about honing my skill set. Yeah. As much as you can say and feel like you're the best, you want others to kind of feel that, understand that, and see that. So it was a year or two where I was honing my craft, training for free. Exactly the same thing I was doing at the Hill and the parks. Yeah. But training athletes. Yeah. Reaching out to different athletes, kids coming out of high school, going to college. And the first goal that I had was to train a professional athlete. Yeah. And that happened in like a year or two. Yeah. Just for me reaching out to people and kind of putting confidence in my trade and my craft. But those, I believe, were the best times because it was a blank canvas. Yeah. I could, kind of apply and learn things that that I thought was a fit for me. Yeah. Right. So everything that I learned from Exos, I applied it to everyone that I was working with. And then from that aspect, learn new material, new things, and applied it. Yeah. Right. So it's a series of learning application, figuring out the process and things that fit my niche, my personality, and my coaching style. And then I got to a point where I felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to not prove to myself, but to get validation from others, basically. Yeah. And that's why I came to L.A. I reached out to some of the people that I looked up to that were doing it at a high level in this space. And I was lucky enough to meet Travell Gaines. He gave me an opportunity to initially started as an intern. 2 months later, end up leading his NFL Combine group. Yeah. So that group, we had a #1 draft pick, Ronnie Stanley. And that's essentially why I'm in L.A. today. So that opportunity was grateful. I was grateful for it, and I'm I'm grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Now, you had said one of your goals early on was you wanted to train a pro athlete. Who was the pro athlete, or who was the first pro athlete that you trained?
The first professional athlete that I trained that paid me, his name was Donnie Avery.
Mm-hmm.
So he played for the Kansas City Chiefs around 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first professional athlete that I actually trained, and he was a 4.2 guy, so he was fast.
Yeah.
So that was my language. Speed was always my language, so it was an easy fit for me. And with that process, it was all about proving myself initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to the point to realize that these athletes are no different than me,
yeah,
then it was just more so being a great person, people person, understand what he likes, what he doesn't like, his personality, and that's what coaching is.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the biggest ego in the room. And, a lot of times when you have the biggest ego, you lose sight of the product and the person that you're training. So that was a great experience, and it helped me understand that, of course, we have this beautiful program over here, but we have to feel this athlete's needs.
Yeah.
So
now as a sports performance coach, and as you were going along on your journey, so when we think of like a coach, I think a lot of us probably think of like an X's and O's,
mm-hmm.
whether it's baseball, basketball, football, somebody that's kind of overseeing the team and trying to win games. Your focus is on individual athletes and getting the most out of their bodies and their performance. So what are some of the focuses, or what are some of the things that you do now that you learned along the way of, what are the ways in which you're training these athletes?
Nowadays, I'm training a lot of youth athletes.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful because it's like a blank canvas every single day.
Yeah.
A blank canvas of evolvement, development. Then the next day you start over.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful component of it. Now, you can be as creative as you want. You can dissect the athlete and give solutions, right? Solutions to, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
So basically a kid that just hit a growth spurt,
mm-hmm.
right? So he went from 5'5" to 5'8".
Yeah.
Right? So now he can't walk. Right? So now he can't raise his right hand and move his left leg.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So looking at that, I'm able to identify certain things, dumb it down, and with professional athletes, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. So these guys are at X level, and these guys are at A level, which means these expectations are different, and I can't be as creative and fulfill that because you're already good.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the difference between training youth athletes. You can give more, you can continue to create, you can continue to paint this picture, and if they're consistent enough, the results will be what they want it to be.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of speed training, do a lot of Olympic lifting, not the traditional Olympic lifting, the hang cleans and snatches and things like that, but I call it a mishmash,
mm-hmm.
right? A mishmash of exercises to reduce the chance of injury, with also the emphasis of performing at a high level. Like, so it's a combination of these exercises that we implement to build that foundation of consistency. Because, if you look at sports today, a lot of people have lower limb injuries. Most of them are non-contact.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to mitigate those chances by implementing a lot of prehab, a lot of the boring stuff, basically.
Sure.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time on the boring stuff to make sure that we check those boxes so they can have a long, successful season.
Yeah, now you're saying boring, but to me, I mean, like you said, a word I've never heard before, prehab.
Yeah.
But you say the word and like I instantly understand what it is that you're saying, but it's a concept that I've never heard. So because it's true what you're saying, like, so I grew up in Los Angeles, so I'm Rams, Lakers, Dodgers.
Go Astros.
We won't turn
Sorry
this
about that.
We won't turn this into the LA versus Houston
podcast.
No,
we won't.
But after we're done, we can have a conversation. No, but I grew up Lakers, Rams, Dodgers, and watching sports growing up, and now I always understood, like, when you see a guy go down and stay down who hasn't been touched, that's a season ender.
No question.
You know what that season over. The
No
second,
question.
you know, even it's not Lakers, but like even when Durant had the Achilles, you know, when he's playing in the finals and you see him go down, nobody touched him and he stays down. You're like, oh, okay, the finals is over. You know what I mean? So what are some of these like prehab things that you're working with that you're gonna help prevent some of these non-contact injuries?
Oh my gosh, it's so case by case basis. It all stems from, I call it the pillar system, and developing, making sure the kinetic chain is stacked and working collectively. And a lot of those non-contact injuries are just stemmed from not a lot of biological training, right? So connecting the brain and the body to work on these patterns. That way, when you jump, your brain is in line with your body decelerating.
Yeah.
Like, so I've seen people jump and just fall and land. Like a professional athlete, I just don't understand how that could happen. You know, but that goes back to the conversation that the conversation I just mentioned about the kid having a growth spurt.
Right.
Like, so it's key for a kid that grows to biomechanically understand his body, right? The brain trains the body. It tells the body what to do, right? So if we have that understanding and you build on those deceleration precursors, those stability precursors, the body is more equipped to handle agile movements, reactive movements, you know? And I also train a lot of negative patterns, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So we put the body in negative positions because they do occur. Right? So if we train these negative positions, if it happens in the game, my body is adaptive to it and reactive to it. Now I can respond to it. So now from that, we build stronger joints, stronger tendons, stronger ligaments, and stronger muscles in weird situations. Like, so we spend a lot of time doing it in a less traditional way, and that stemmed from my experience in the physical therapy. You know, when I first moved here, I worked at a facility called CAS Performance, and it was all functional-based physical therapy. You know, not when you tear your ACL, you just recover the knee and the quad and the hamstring. It was more movement-based, right? Training the 360 degree, right? So every muscle has multiple heads. Like, so now we're working around every muscle, building the stability and the strength and the function, also building movement capacities in the 3 planes of motion. Yeah. Like, so that's how I look at training. And doing my internship, Roy Holmes was my intern advisor. And he always told me to take a picture from a 360 degree. And it took me a while to understand that. So when I train, I'm in a lot of different places. So I may walk 10 feet away just to look at this angle. I may stand close to you to look at this angle. I may stand behind you so I can see what your body is doing in different situations. That way, I can see what your body is doing, how you're responding to it, and now I can create solutions to build on these things that we're doing positively or negatively to help you become a better athlete and function better.
That's crazy, man. It's so many things that I think to the average listener would never occur to think about a muscle from 360 degrees. Now, you've worked with a number of professional athletes, just to name a couple: Todd Gurley, Trey Young, Saquon Barkley. Working with guys at that level, what is the focus, and what do you learn from somebody that's at that level? I mean, these are, you know, the 0.01% of human beings that have reached that highest level of physical performance. So what is the focus for you as a coach, and what do you take from somebody that has a mentality that got them to that level?
The first thing is always gaining their trust. Gaining their trust and building a relationship. Yeah. Right? Once you do that, then they become comfortable. Now it's not a rebellious act, right? So that's always first. And then after that is being a coach, doing what you do. Yeah. But every athlete comes in with goals, right? But also as a coach, you come in with needs. Sure. Right? So needs, goals, right? And it's all about combining those two and creating that it factor that's going to help the athlete excel, perform at a high level, to and ultimately be successful and consistent. So once I began training athletes, I began to learn how to communicate better, how to understand different personalities, how other people approach and process their training.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest element,
Mm-hmm.
right? So once you understand that and your personnel, everything else becomes easier. Just say, for instance, Trey Young. I work with Trey Young with Travell Gaines, Athletic Gaines. He was the number 3 overall pick.
Yep.
And he was coming out of college as a high recruited athlete going into the NFL, and he was really easy to work with. Sometimes he talked, sometimes he didn't talk, but he was super focused on getting to the next level. And say, for instance, another guy, Antonio Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He liked talking. He liked being super energetic. You know, sometimes he would just do his own thing, right? But understanding those two different type of personalities and understanding who you're dealing with makes your job a lot easier.
Yep.
Like, so I never got too high or too low. So, you know, I met them where they were too, and just figured out how to get our point across and get what we needed to get out, but knowing that this is who they are, which, you know, it didn't affect our job because we understood that.
Now, when did the training with youth development, you were saying earlier that you train kids now as young as 12 years old. When did that really start?
I began training when I initially started doing my internship at Athletes Performance, now Exos. My entire process there was with youth and high school athletes. You know, and when I began training on my own, I thought the thing to do was train professional athletes. Yeah. So I did that here for 3 or 4 years. And it really, really, really dialed in during COVID. Like, so when COVID happened, I looked at a lot of bridges that I was trying to create weren't really bridges, right? So I was reaching out to a lot of people, just open-ended conversations, never being reciprocated. You know, so when COVID happened, I took a step back, figured out what landscape I wanted to create and what avenue I wanted to be in and what fit my personality with what I wanted to do. And I didn't reach out to anybody, by the way. It just started to grow and manifest, right? So I started with one kid, training him. That kid turned into 6. Then that turned into an entire football organization of 60 kids. And then training that entire organization led to me training my own speed camp from one person, seeing me out there training. Speed camp of 70 kids. And now I have a lot of, like, group trainings with the youth kids. And for me, it's much more fulfilling because, like I said before, it's a blank canvas every single day. You know, I can feed into them and I can teach them. I can get them to understand the thought process it takes to be a professional athlete or an elite level athlete. It all stems from being consistent, right? Consistent. If you're not consistent, you diminish your chances of being successful. So that's where it started. And, of course, I still train professional athletes here and there. But I think from where I'm at in my life, that's the place that I want to be in, development. Just somehow, with social media and everything that's going on right now, people have lost the essence of developing athletes from the root of developing athletes. I see a lot of things on Instagram that doesn't quite make sense at times. You know, I just believe in development. But that's where I'm at the stage of my career.
Now, when we're talking about development and we're talking about, you know, kids that are 12 years old versus somebody that is in high school, and you talked about, you know, when you were coaching, or when you still do, but when you know, work with professionals, understanding their personalities and how they like to work and how they like to learn, what are the things that you find with kids in terms of where they are in their development and what sport they're playing as how you might modify your style or your things that you're teaching them?
From the youth aspect, I am more open when I train the youth because there's not really expectations, so to speak. Like, no one is expecting me to give a service or put on the show. They're just there because their parents want them to be there. Or they want to get better. You know, so that's one of the biggest things that changes. Like, so I don't have to meet a standard.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I'm going to deliver a great product and a great service, but it's no pressure when training kids. You know, they're there to listen, work, get better, and I can feed them as much as I need to, or not as much as I need to, depending on, you know, the kids or the kid or kids that I'm training. Whereas training a professional athlete, there's just so many, you know, stigmas that you have to live up to in just that session. I guess you have to be perfect, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to be. You should just be a coach.
Yeah.
Right. So all those things kind of come into play when training youth kids, high school kids, and professional athletes.
Now, when training athletes, from sport to sport,
yes, sir,
does the training change?
It can change, but being a performance coach, speed matters.
Yeah.
Movement matters.
Yeah.
Being explosive, being able to train in multiple phases, that matters. But what I've developed was the specificity of my movement. Okay, so I've trained professional baseball players, professional basketball players, professional football players, professional tennis players. So all these sports require the exact same thing, but what changes is the specific needs of their movement capacities per their sport. Right? So the work capacities and the way that they move and the way their movements become interchangeable. So when I'm training, of course, we give those general consensus of training, but also we want to make it as specific as we possibly can without being their sport coach. Right? Yeah. So now they understand the movements that they need to create, or they're prepared for the rigors of their sport. Yeah. Right?
Now, when it comes to speed, which seems to be one of your specialties, both as an athlete yourself growing up and now as a coach, is speed something that you're born with, or can it be taught?
It's a little bit of both. It's like my buddy Les Spelman always says, it's a applied skill.
Yeah.
Like, so it has to be learned to be applied at a high level. But I'm not saying that you can't be born with speed.
Sure.
Like, so we've seen that notion already. Some people are genetically manufactured to be fast.
Sure.
So if you look at Tyreek Hill, we look at Odell Beckham, we look at their gene pool. Odell Beckham, both parents ran track. Right. So we look at things like that. You know, the genetics kind of come into play, but also there are applied skills that we can implement to help you be a more elite, consistent runner.
Yeah. Now, somebody who, let's say, was not born with the most gifted speed or the most gifted athletic performance, with somebody like you working with them specifically on movement and performance, I mean, how much better so I'll take myself, for example. I'm 5'10".
Yes, sir.
About 180 pounds. When I was in high school, I was like 5'6", like 140. I was never like a natural athlete, but I also never had any kind of specific coaching or anything. I mean, can you take a kid that is, for lack of a better word, average and get them to a certain level of athletic performance?
No question. I mean, of course, you have to get a little bit lucky. We always go back to the foundation and the consistency of your process. Like, so with most parents that I work with, I let them know or teach them that it's a process. It's not just me.
Sure.
Like, so the process of what the professional athletes do, I bring that down to what the kids do. So you have to work your skill training. You have to work on your speed development and your training. You have to work on your skill training. Right, so it has to be in that aspect. And if you look at sports today, they come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Right, all different athletic builds, genetic makeup. You know, all those things. Of course, it used to be the stigma of sports, like, oh, you have to be 6'5" to play baseball, 220. Nowadays, Altuve is 5'4", 5'5", right? And then
come back to the Astros,
right? Of course. But and also, like in football, like I've trained linebackers that were 5'10".
Yeah.
Like, so not the best athlete, but, you know, did the little things consistently right. Were likable, right? There was just something that's not talked about. Your body language, how you present yourself. So all of these things can get you in the door without you being the best athlete. Yeah. But you have to do the little things right consistently. I talked to my son's Jaden. He wants to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like to speak up. He doesn't like to communicate. His body language is right? So all of these things that requires being a quarterback is total opposite.
Yeah.
Your mannerisms, not showing when you're flustered, right? Speaking up. So especially when training these kids, it's so much more to training. It's getting them and prepping them for those next levels.
Yeah.
Right? Understanding how to communicate, how to talk, how to speak up, not being isolated, right? As a scout and as a coach, they read those things in a negative manner. Mm. So we're feeding all those things into our kids and our clients that we're working with, because it's ultimately about developing them for the next level.
Yeah. Now, as we wind down here,
yes, sir.
As somebody who's now working with youth all the way up to professionals, what is like the most rewarding thing that you find in this career?
The most rewarding thing is seeing the process begin to manifest. Like, I started working with a kid by the name of Chris Clarkson. His dad is a quarterback coach here at the age of 13. Now, he just turned 18 last week. There was a lot of long hours, long training sessions, years of just working, right? And now seeing that he's becoming successful and one of the top talents in his class is, for me, the most rewarding, right? It used to be getting draft picks.
Yeah.
Like when 2018, when we had 3 first-round draft picks, that was the most rewarding thing for me. Now it's, seeing the kids kind of develop and grow, and when they see them get their stars and their ratings and those college offers is something that makes more sense and more rewarding for me.
That's awesome, man. And last question, and this is something that I ask everybody that comes on the show to finish up. What does sports mean for you, and what has sports done for you in your life?
Sports for me, it's definitely an outlet to get away from the real world, because there's so many things going on in the real world, especially when you have family. Now COVID, it's an outlet to kind of get away from the real world, and it can be a distraction for great things. It can alleviate emotional stress from things that are going on. For me, it has done wonders because, of course, I'm in the sports field. Without it, I don't know if I would be as successful as I am now.
That's awesome, man. Well, Darelle Noel, thank you so much for stopping by the studio. If anyone listening to this wants to reach out to you, where can you be reached?
You can reach me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is masteroffaster_. masteroffaster_. Check me out. Shoot me a follow.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for who are listening on the Callin app. If you guys want to check us out, we are on Instagram at Cannon Sports. We are on TikTok at Cannon Sports Official. Check out our YouTube page and cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs. I've been Ryan from Cannon Sports. Thank you guys so much.